This training will demonstrate the Type 1 Categorical Exclusion Checklist form. To access the Type 1 CE form, on the left side menu under Project Input Setup, select Type 1 Categorical Exclusion Checklist. Input your FM number. For this project, we're presented with three options. The first is create a new checklist for this project. That's a project that does not have an existing checklist but uses this FM number. The second option shows us the same FM number and the project description from an existing project. It gives us the choice Edit Existing Checklist or Create a New Checklist for this project. This is the choice you'll select if you want to input a reevaluation of the existing project. Our third choice is to create a new swept project. We'll make our selection and click the Next button. The top section of my form shows information that's been pulled in from Work Program. We can see the federal aid program number, if there was one for this project, will be listed here. The Work Program project description, the work mix, county name, or in this case, because we're in multiple counties within our district, the district name is shown. All of that's pulled in from Work Program. If it's not correct, it needs to be updated through your Work Program folks, and that'll be imported the next day into the swept tool. Related FM numbers can be added here. We can type in a partial FM and then select from the list and add or remove those as needed. The next choice we make is the CE type, C or D. The C and the D refer to specific paragraphs in 23 CFR 771.117. The note below the project description explains that Part C and D are lists describing categorical exclusions that are governed by the constraints in Part E of the same regulation. Whichever selection we make, we need to input a project description. Below the project description, depending on our choices, we have one or two statements that we must verify before we can continue. If we've chosen items 26, 27, or 28 from checklist C, or any item from checklist D, then we'll need to verify both of these statements are true. If the criteria here do not apply, then this form is not the appropriate form. This project is not a Type 1 CE. First, verify this action will not induce significant impacts to planned growth or land use for the area, travel patterns, air or water quality, or cause substantial controversy on environmental grounds. Second, for those constrained CE types listed in the note here, the action will not cause changes in interchange access control, result in major traffic disruptions due to the construction of temporary access or the closure of existing road, bridge, or ramps. The words major traffic disruptions, if you hover on them, will show you a definition of exactly what is being referred to there. If our project does meet those criteria, we'll check the verified box and the rest of the form becomes visible. Each question requires a response, and in some cases can require a comment or additional specific responses depending on the choices we make. You'll see what I mean as we go through the form. Notice on the far right, the has required documentation, red exclamation mark. That lets us know that we have something more to do for this question. Once we've satisfied the needs of the question, however, for example, by selecting a right-of-way, the red exclamation changes to a green check mark, and we can continue. The comment here tells us that general comments are optional for this question. Notice that not all choices are equal. If we're within the existing right-of-way or minor acquisition is required, we can continue with the form. However, any acquisitions with relocations and/or displacements identify that this project, because we chose C26, C27, C28, or one of the D-list projects, does not meet the criteria as a Type 1. Question 2 has to do with wetland impacts. We can select No Wetland Impacts, Nationwide Permit, General Permit SAJ 92, or Standard Permit. Again, for those projects with additional constraints, this is disqualifying for a Type 1 CE. Question 3 relates to bridge permits. No waterway crossing, no bridge permit required, or Coast Guard permit required. Again, see the note. Question 4 relates to floodplains. No floodplain, functionally dependent use or facilitate open space use, other encroachment, a disqualifying choice. Question 5 relates to construction activities with respect to wild and scenic rivers. There are only 2 wild and scenic rivers, one in District 4, one in District 5. So this question defaults to no listed rivers present and has all the required documentation necessary. Only change this if you're going to be impacting the northwest fork of the Loxahatchee River or the Wekiva River. Question 6 relates to Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act. This is an example of a question that requires more information depending on our answer. We can choose no ESA listed species present, ESA listed species present, in which case we can choose determination of no effect, or used key, that is, we looked up the species and no consultation is required. Either of these requires a list of species to be added. If I choose used key, no consultation required, I also must provide a list of species. If consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or National Marine Fisheries Service is required, check the third box. Identify the result either may affect, not likely to adversely affect, or may affect, likely to adversely affect. Make the proper selection and attach the concurrence letter or date that you performed coordination with OEM. This also is a disqualifying selection for our more constrained project types. Question 7 relates to properties protected by Section 4F. There's a link to the regulation for reference. The choices are no potential Section 4F properties present, Section 4F resources present or adjacent but there is no use within the means of Section 4F, which requires a list of resources to be provided. Third choice is exception or exemption, attach description of type and official with jurisdiction concurrence. So you'll attach the file with the OWJ, consult with Office of Environmental Management and list the date of consultation and list the resources. The fourth choice is de minimis, which requires attachment of the OWJ concurrence, consultation with the Office of Environmental Management and the date of that consultation, and a list of resources. The fifth choice is programmatic or individual Section 4F evaluation required. This is disqualifying for our more constrained project types, and a general comment is required. Question 8 relates to historic and archaeological resources. No historic or archaeological resources present within the APE pursuant to 106 Programmatic Agreement, and there's a link to the regulation for reference. This requires attachment of appropriate documentation. Determination of no involvement also requires appropriate documentation. Determination of no effect, determination of no adverse effect, or determination of adverse effect, which is disqualifying for more constrained project types. All of these require attachment of appropriate documentation and can include a general comment, which is optional. Question 9 is noise consideration. The project does not require a noise analysis, or the project does require noise analysis. If the project does require noise analysis, noise abatement is either warranted or not. Provide the decision, attach appropriate documentation, and comments are optional. Question 10 relates to contamination considerations. If the project was evaluated for contamination considerations, check the checkbox. Let's see, I think I have some shorthand because we've seen this before. Because comments are required regardless of whether we attach, regardless of whether we check the checkbox. Let's go back again to the beginning to question 10. Question 10 relates to contamination considerations. If the project was evaluated for contamination considerations, check the checkbox. Regardless whether the checkbox is checked, I'm going to just keep saying that over and over again. Regardless whether the checkbox is checked, comments are required. We also have the option to attach appropriate documentation. It's not an option. Okay. Let me back it up. Let's go back to the beginning, question 10. Question 10 relates to contamination considerations. If the project was evaluated for contamination considerations, we'll need to check the checkbox and attach appropriate documentation. Regardless whether we check the checkbox, we still need to provide a comment. To attach appropriate documentation, we can click the Upload button, click the Choose File button, select our file from our computer. We have the option of renaming the file. We can see what the file name will be directly underneath this text area. As we type to make changes, we can see that the file name changes as well. We can also give a document description or change the document date. We can select the document type, which defaults to supporting documentation, or we can choose correspondence, picture, or other, and then choose checkboxes to identify all the questions to which the information in this document applies. We can use the Select All checkbox if the document applies to all of the questions. In this case, it only includes contamination considerations. I'll check that checkbox and choose Save. If while you're completing this form you need to consult with the Office of Environmental Management, you probably want to save draft and call your PDC to discuss whatever topic you need to clarify. At the bottom, you're given three options: Save Draft, Send for Approval, and Add Editor. Only those users in your district who have been added as an editor can modify the Type 1 CE. If you know you have other team members who will be working on it, it's a good idea to add them at the outset. If there are any additional documents you want to upload to support the Type 1 CE, the Upload Document button here allows you to do so and allows you to associate it with any of the questions in the checklist. Once you've completed the form, you can click Send for Approval. The Type 1 CE checklist will be reviewed by your district environmental manager, and you'll be notified when the review is complete. If you change your mind and need to make additional modifications, you can scroll to the bottom of the form, provide your comment on why you want to withdraw the submittal, and click the Withdraw button to put the Type 1 CE checklist back into draft status. If you have questions about the Type 1 CE checklist or any questions about the SWEP tool, you can always scroll to the bottom of your page and look for our contact information for the Office of Environmental Management Help Desk. Contact us by email at swept@fla-etat.org or call the Help Desk during business hours at 850-414-5334.